My name is Alex DeSherbinen. I work at CEASIN, which is the Center for International Earth Science Information Network at Columbia University, at the Earth Institute of Columbia University. And I've been working on the indicator work with Yale University and Yale Center for Environmental Law and Policy since roughly 1999. At a certain point, we realized we've been developing these indicators, but not always accurately tracking what the impact is on the user community. Are people taking these up in policy processes? Are they using the Environmental Sustainability Index or the Environmental Performance Index in real life decision making? What we decided in 2011 or so was that in the preparation for our 2012 Environmental Performance Index, that we would go through a process of collecting case studies of what we called indicators in practice, which is where indicators are being used for policy purposes and possibly also in management context to track decision making and to essentially aid policymakers in setting targets and in identifying, where they want to prioritize their actions. There tends to be three broad categories of indicator usage. One is a kind of instrumental use in which the indicators are used really in a kind of somewhat deterministic way or mechanistic way, where if the indicator goes above a certain level, it will trigger a certain policy action. So you can imagine fecal coliform levels go above a certain level in a coastal water body, and authorities determine on that basis that they need to close the beach and put up postings around the beach that the water's not safe. In terms of more complex policy-making processes, there tend to be two kind of broader uses of indicators and composite indices. One of those is in kind of conceptually framing agendas. So a good example would be the EPI tends to frame the agenda in terms of policy targets. And what we're basically advocating is that every government should have targets that they're striving towards. And if they don't, they should be looking at that seriously, whether it's for air pollution, water pollution, climate change, biodiversity conservation. And that is our fundamental message. And we, in our global index, we set the targets based on global consensus and expert opinion. But there's we're not saying that those are the definitive targets. We're rather encouraging governments to adopt this kind of approach to tracking environmental progress and to really take a performance-based approach. The third kind of broad use of indicators is political, and that tends to be in political processes where indicators can maybe be used to reward or provide incentives, or in some case punish actors if they're perceived as failing to meet certain criteria or meeting certain indicator targets. Those are the primary uses of indicators. I think there's some best practices we also derived. Involvement of stakeholders, engagement with people who are going to use the indicators is really important in terms of getting the indicators right. There's communications is very important, so just not letting the report sort of lay on a shelf, but actually getting out and talking to news media, ensuring that the message is well communicated, and creating nice websites and data exploration tools and things of this sort can be very, very important for communicating the overall message. I think it's still early days yet. We've seen a huge proliferation in indicators around the world, not just global indicators, but national and subnational and city level. Some of these have been very successful, the air quality and air pollution indices in the US and China, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in this area, and we look forward to kind of delving into it in more detail in the future.